Hey, welcome back to Pathway to Profit with the Two Greats. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. I've had a busy day. How about yourself?
Yeah, similar, very busy, but can't complain. And
Good.
so today I was actually thinking take a bit of a turn, and because obviously we focused quite a bit on some of the positive aspects, but I was just going to try and help those people who maybe aren't in such a positive step. And I was thinking about talking about insolvency, actually.
Okay, interesting. So you mean like going concern, whether something is a going concern, whether it isn't, and kind of what companies should do, maybe the responsibility of directors, or a little bit about that, or where were you thinking to go with it?
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking going concern and kind of the steps, if people do find themselves in a position where they are worried about this, kind of any general steps that they might be able to take just to help them get through this tough time and help them to try to get back to that where they want to be.
Okay, yeah, so interesting. So why don't I start? So, I mean, for me, I think the best starting place is to understand that there's kind of two different types of insolvency. So the first one for me is what I call a trading insolvency, or cash flow insolvency. I think some people call it, I call it a trading insolvency, which really, without getting too accounting, if you look at your balance sheet, it's really where the current part of it is negative. In other words, you don't have your liabilities exceed your current assets. In other words, you maybe don't have enough cash to cover all your current liabilities, but you may have a lot of fixed assets that cover it. So I remember back in the first part of my career, or in the early days, back when Noah was making an ark, I remember I was looking at a country club and a golf course, and they had a real challenge on the trading part. And back then you could revalue your assets and increase it. And so they obviously had the clubhouse, the country clubhouse, and the golf course and all of that. And so they had a very strong balance sheet, but all of it was in their fixed assets. They really struggled on the trading part of that. The other kind, which is what I think most people kind of think of, is when it's an overall balance sheet insolvency. And that really just means that if the total of your balance sheet is a negative, in other words, it's not a positive number, you've got more liabilities than assets, then you're insolvent. And that's really kind of what it is. And that's kind of the first thing, is the definition, I guess. From there, I guess what I think about is kind of what is insolvent trading and how does that come about. And for me, I think there's maybe two or three things that I personally think about. So if a person's a director while the company is insolvent, then that's insolvent trading. If they incur debt and they know the company is insolvent, then that's clearly insolvent trading. Or, and this is maybe the situation that a lot of people find themselves in, is where there's maybe reasonable grounds to think that they might be, because for argument's sake, maybe they don't get monthly management accounts or quarterly management accounts. They don't look at their numbers. They do their statutory accounts. That's done maybe 6 months after their year end. So that was like 18 months ago. They may not really kind of know. And under those circumstances, that could be in insolvent trading, or they kind of know they're close. So if they get this debt, it tips them over the balance. That would be insolvent trading. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. And so what does this mean in terms of like going concern and how that all fits into it?
What do you mean? Like how do you know you're a going concern, or how do you?
Exactly, yeah. How do people who would find themselves in that know that they're still a going concern?
Okay. Well, I guess probably what I'd say, and I probably should have said up front, is if you're in any doubt, you should obviously talk to your accountant, give us a call, or give my controller a call. But you should also probably seek out an insolvency practitioner, maybe a corporate lawyer, and really taught to them, because it's really important to understand that really a general accountant and as a generalist probably isn't intimate with all of the rules and all of the implications of insolvent trading and what have you. But for me, the key thing that you have to do as a director, if you are trading, no matter when, right? You kind of, now if you're trading and you're solvent and there's no question about it going concern, it's a really easy assessment. But fundamentally, as a director, you should always be doing what's called a going concern assessment. And there's only really 3 outcomes to that assessment. You're either going to have no material concern that, sorry, my dog came in. I'm going to have to go close the door.
No worries. You didn't get the memo.
I think what I'm going to have to do is we'll just pause for a minute. We'll go back and I'll try and edit it. Okay.
Where do you want to go back to?
I'll just pick up where I was. Okay. So I think as I was saying, as a director, you have to do a going concern assessment, and really that happens no matter what. If you're trading and you're continuing to trade, and if you have a positive balance sheet and you have a lot of cash in the bank, and business is going well, then that's a pretty easy assessment. That you're going to continue. But where you're close or you're over the line, that assessment becomes harder. And there's really only 3 outcomes to that assessment. One is that there's no material concerns that you'll continue as a going concern, right? So there's no concerns. That you're solved. There's a second one, which is where there is some material uncertainty, or you have reason to believe that there could be problems. And especially when you look at the economy today, with interest rates going up, you see currencies going down, the cost of energy going up. There's so many dynamics that are changing that if you're close, how do you know, right? Governments don't know where things are going. So how can you possibly know? So, you have concerns. However, you think that continuing as a going concern is appropriate. So you could be over the line. It's kind of ambiguous, but no matter what, you feel that really continuing to trade is appropriate given the optics, given the way you think you can turn it around, or what have you. The third one is that going concern is just simply not appropriate. Right? And you don't believe that you can continue. So that is really, that's really the kind of 3 options you have. Now, if you find yourself in bucket number 3, you have to speak to your accountant. You have to then engage with an insolvency practitioner. Now, it's important to understand an insolvency practitioner, and I am not one, but so to be clear, but an insolvency practitioner is one of the few people in accounting that are known as the responsible person. So they take on a level of responsibility that is due to the people that you owe money to. So that's their responsibility when they take over. So it's important that you know that. I would always make sure that you get your final set of accounts before you hand it over to them. I'd take control, in other words. I'd kind of control and plan the exit without detriment to creditors or continuing to trade inappropriately. So it's a really tough, fine line to manage. But I think that a lot of people today probably will find themselves clearly in bucket 3, but then what you have to do, right? You have to do the right thing about your creditors. You can't incur more debt. That would just be inappropriate and wrong, and probably not fair on the people that you're taking money from or taking goods from. But if you're in bucket number 2, you're close to the line, or you're slightly over the line, then that's maybe a little bit more challenging to know what to do. And I guess where I would go with that is, again, depending on where you're at, you got to make sure you can change the answer. But your job as a business owner or manager in any case is to change the answer. That's your job, right? So you have to, understanding your sales isn't explaining why you didn't get it. It's about changing the answer to get the number you need. That's what sales is about. Otherwise, you're just taking orders. So you have to take the steps to be able to drive the performance and the results that you need. And that's, I think, where Pathway to Profit helps. And I think that's where kind of this helps. Anyways, so anything else that you can think of? Or
Yeah, the only thing I would kind of add on to that is, obviously we've been through a lot of very tough times. I mean, starting with Brexit, which will have had an impact, the measure of which is hard to measure. We then went almost straight into COVID. We then had this with Russia and the war, which led to this energy crisis. And it's kind of snowballed into this effect of, there was a lot of grants given out during COVID, like the furlough and all that, which was fantastic. But the issue is, especially with the bounce back loan, a lot of people got that. And obviously, if you were getting that loan because you needed it to keep trading, it's almost definite that you're insolvent in your business currently. It's a mathematical kind of certainty. So if you were in that situation where you were needing it to survive, you just got to know that you're now in this position where you've got to constantly be working to change the stories. You said you're in bucket 2 currently. You've got to get to that comfortable place where you're making that money. And like you said, finding the way to do it, Pathway to Profit is there, designed to help people get to that stage. But whatever it is to help you get there, that's kind of what's needed. And you're not alone in this. I think I read somewhere that 70% of businesses are currently, of small businesses are currently insolvent in kind of after all what's happened. So that's the other thing I would say. But you're not alone. It's a common thing. It's been a really difficult time for everyone. And so just, you've got to keep working at it, is what I'd say.
Yeah, no, I think you raised some really good points. I mean, first of all, yeah, I read something similar. I think it was around 70%. I don't have the exact stat in front of me, but yeah. I read something similar. But I wholeheartedly agree with you that if you got a bounce back loan, or even worse, kind of one of the bigger ones that was available, like C-bills or whatever, and you needed that money. In other words, a lot of people took a bounce back loan because it was non-discriminatory and it was cheap money, right? Mm-hmm. So if you got it because it was cheap money, then it helped you just make more money. But if you took it for the intent that the government, or the reason that the government intended, which was to help businesses through this time with a view that they'd repay it back, if you truly needed it, mathematically, I agree with you. You probably are insolvent, or at least very close, if you need that money, right? But there's some other factors that's kind of interesting to look at. When I look back over the too many years that I've been involved in businesses, a lot of times, like, nothing hides like sins like growth. When people are growing, then they're growing and more money is coming in because they're selling more and more, but their costs are rising. And they often, if they don't have those appropriate controls in place, they actually don't know how they're doing. And so when the music stops, they could find that in actual fact, that growth is hidden a lot of problems that they just didn't see, either because they weren't looking at management accounts, or they didn't have proper budgeting process in place. Maybe they didn't do their pricing right. Maybe they didn't negotiate good terms on what they bought, or maybe they had, maybe they didn't get paid for 90 days, but they paid everybody else that they buy from in 15, for argument's sake. So that just the payment cycle was just so fast, and the sales cycle, or the cash in from the sales cycle, so slow. In other words, the money was getting clogged in the system, that as soon as sales slowed down, maybe they were in a bit of trouble for a while, or something like that. Or they had like almost too favorable of payment terms. In other words, they get paid up front, but they don't have to pay people for a long time. So in the end, they're investing money that should be going somewhere else, perhaps, and they're effectively robbing Peter to pay Paul. And again, you're in a situation where that's fine as long as you got a lot of Peters coming in. But the second that slows down, you're in a challenging situation. Worst case of all, you got a little bit of all of it, right? You've taken that loan, you were growing, maybe now that's slowing down, and you were paying robbing Peter to pay Paul. You're probably in a challenging situation. And the thing that I would say is that I often see with people that are running businesses, I don't know, I kind of ask people, like, how much effort do you put into learning the skills to run a business successfully, right? And the first step is understanding what success means to you. And that means different things to everybody. But foundationally in accounting, and certainly to stay on topic with going concern, then foundationally it's to at least be a going concern, right? And so, I think that the purpose of Pathway to Profit and what you've pulled together, which I think is great, is foundationally the right thing to help people develop and continue to have the momentum around the skills, the strategic skills and the tactical skills needed to run a profitable business. And never more so did they need it than if they fall in that second bucket, where there is some uncertainty, or maybe it's even material, but it just makes sense to continue as a going concern. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And thank you for giving your thoughts on the subject. Sorry, it was a bit less exciting than usual, but just as important, if not more.
I think it's very important. I think it's a very important topic.
But thank you for taking time out to watch and listen to the podcast. And as always, if you have any comments, please feel free to let us know on how you feel we could do better, or maybe some subjects that you'd like us to cover. Always welcome to the ideas, and we're more than happy to look into the stuff if need be, and do the topics.
Yeah, definitely. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and try and be kind with your comments. We're kind of sensitive souls, but yeah, thanks again. Thanks for watching, and great. Love to chat, man.
Yeah, great time. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.